Hello, YouTube. Yes, we are back. It's been a long, boring hiatus. 8 weeks. Who would have thought? Welcome back to Into the Stands, episode 13, alongside Chris and Colin. I'm Robbie, and today we have some stuff to go over. A little bit of a break review because, of course, we were away for 8 weeks. We're going to begin this week a little different than what we did over the previous few weeks. We're going to kick it off with the New York Giants and how they did because they made the playoffs, unlike my Jets, and we'll talk about them in a second. But Colin, start us off with a deep dive into the Giants.
Well, first of all, I just want to say great to be back here on the show with you guys, ready for another semester. But let's talk about the New York Giants. So the last time we were on a show, I remember this is right before we played Philadelphia in MetLife Stadium, a game which we were pretty much blown out. And at that point of the season, it was kind of looking like tough for the New York Giants. There were legitimate questions over whether or not this team was going to make the playoffs. But they had a huge win on Sunday Night Football against Washington. They got a couple big wins down the stretch. They had a huge win against the Indianapolis Colts, which got them there. And the Giants made it to the playoffs for the first time since 2016. And it was just really just a good moment all around for this franchise. So many years of just meaningless December football, seeing the Giants finally get there to the promised land. It was just fantastic to see. And, even if the Giants season ended just there, even if they were first round exits, this season would have been viewed as an absolute success. Daniel Jones really kind of showing he can be a guy who can win you football games. Saquon Barkley having an amazing resurgent year. A young defense led by guys like Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. Got a lot of those guys really stepping up, making huge contributions. Brian Daboll establishing himself as one of the best young coaches in the NFL. And on top of that, the Giants went into Minnesota in a first-round playoff game and won that football game. And it was a game where the Giants' offense was very productive. The score winning 31-24. Daniel Jones, 300 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, also having 78 rushing yards, just truly stepping up when it matters most in the big moment. Even Saquon Barkley, chipping in with, it was only 9 carries for 54 yards, but he also had 2 touchdowns. Huge win in Minnesota, the Giants' first playoff win since Super Bowl 46 when I was just 7 years old. But, it was just so great to see. But then the next week, kind of reality hit. We played the Philadelphia Eagles team, who is currently going to be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. And we lost 38-7. Now, granted, cannot be mad about this. What a phenomenal season for the New York Giants. In that Philadelphia game, I think it's just a big factor was just that the Giants simply aren't talented enough. We knew going into the season, I think if you go back to our first show this year, I was saying that there's no way this Giants team was going to be a playoff contender. And they just proved me wrong in every way. So all I can really say is just looking over this entire season, this is always going to be a season I remember very fondly because this is probably the most unexpected Giants season I've ever seen. Just being a team that went 4-13 the following year, firing your head coach, be having a 5 to 6 year playoff drought, and just doing this, bringing hope back to the fan base. Going to the second round of the playoffs. Philadelphia, they're just not what we are right now. Hopefully the next coming years, Joe Shane in this future years as general manager, Brian Daboll coaching this team, Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley hopefully back. Maybe we can see something better for the Giants. But just overall, absolute monster success of the season. Hopefully Brian Daboll wins Coach of the Year. Hopefully Saquon Barkley gets Comeback Player of the Year. But we have a very interesting offseason coming up for the New York Giants because Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley are free agents. So what this means is that Daniel Jones could get a very high contract. We're looking at possibly, reports are even saying maybe $30 million. Now, if you told me before this season that Daniel Jones is going to get a $30 million contract, I just simply would have laughed in your face. I would not have been able to believe it. But just with the way the market is, this might be a possibility. Personally, I don't really want to see Jones get paid more than $20 million. I don't think that he really warrants that. But seeing as how the QB market is, that may just happen. And Saquon Barkley, there's been a lot of rumors that he may want to be the highest paid running back in football. And I mean, I don't have as big of a problem with that as Daniel Jones because, sure, because at least with Saquon Barkley, he's a superstar level player. But a lot of tough decisions coming here. I'm so fascinated to see what Joe Shane and this Giants team does down the stretch in this offseason. But at least the one good thing that I feel about this new regime is I feel I can trust them. I feel that, with Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, I feel that I trust their decision making. I trust that they'll make the right call on Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, something that I really have not been able to say. But yeah, just wrapping this all up, really a phenomenal season for New York's team, the New York Football Giants. Now, I figure now we have to go into the New York's other football team. We didn't do as great. We talked a lot about them over the year on this show, but they didn't do as good as the Giants. So Robbie, take it away. What happened to the New York Jets?
We went into the break and I said the Jets had potential to go 10-7, but I also did mention that there could be an inevitable collapse. I was not wrong. Boy, was I not wrong. The Jets were red hot entering December and then fell off like the Buffalo Bills did many years ago, and many other New York Jets teams over the last decade. The Jets ended the year 7-10, like I predicted in the beginning of the year, which is kind of funny. Who would have thought that couple back in December that the Jets would finish 7-10? I don't think anyone here would. But they ended the season poor with Mike White getting hurt against Buffalo, Zach Wilson coming back, he gets benched again. All this BS with Jacksonville. You go into the game with Seattle, a game that I think they could have won. I think they could have. When we went to look into the schedule, they played games against Detroit, Jacksonville, and Seattle. When we had that first stream, I mentioned that all 3 games should have been won by the Jets. They went 0-3. Games I said they should not have won. Buffalo, Green Bay, Denver, won all 3. Went 3-1. So at the end of the day, it's a very confusing season from the Jets that they won the games that no one thought they would win, but at the same time they lost games that they should have won. So it's a very confusing season. There's a lot of question marks with this team. There's the rumors with Aaron Rodgers since the Jets just got Nathaniel Hackett, who I think they rushed to a decision with Hackett. I like Kellen Moore better. I think he called a little bit of a more consistent offense in Dallas. And when you look at what Denver did after Hackett got fired, their offense surged out of nowhere with Russell Wilson. But, I mean, he's young. He has potential. He did good with Jacksonville. He did well with Blake Bortles. Now, for those who don't know, after Hackett left, Blake Bortles basically fell off the map. So I think that does test into a little bit of how good Nathaniel Hackett is, or he could be. He did all right with Aaron Rodgers, so he has potential. But I don't know. I mean, the Jets have had a high intentions into going after Aaron Rodgers. Now, I want to hear your guys' opinions about it in a second, but I'll start with this. I don't like it. Now, there's one reason why. Aaron Rodgers is a free agent at the end of next season, and I do not think there is any form of a shot that he stays after this season if the Jets do decide to trade for him because of the cap situation that the Jets have. And I think with Joe Douglas's previous moves, I think he'd want to keep the homegrown player, the big name, and Quinnen Williams on the team because you're going to have to make a decision if you want your quarterback to be Aaron Rodgers. Say it's Aaron Rodgers. You're going to have to make a decision there and then if you're going to take Aaron Rodgers or Quinnen Williams. This is why, after all the quarterbacks that could be traded, signed, the one I want is Derek Carr. Here is why. I like Derek Carr more because you have longer control with Derek Carr for another year. And you can move around his cap situation and make it more contract friendly for the team. Now it restructures and then pay Quinnen Williams the money he wants and then move it around a little bit more in the next season with Quinnen's contract. So that's why I think Derek Carr would be better for the team. But I don't know. I mean, it's a very interesting situation. I do not want to trade a first-round pick for him. I don't think Aaron Rodgers should get a first-round pick unless some team in their right mind wants to do that because you can kind of label Aaron Rodgers as a locker room cancer a little bit now because of how much he's wanted to move around this team. But at the end of the day, it's a very interesting situation. The situation Green Bay does not want to be in. But I'll get your guys' thoughts on this. Possibility, let's start with Chris. The Jets possibly going after Aaron Rodgers, the right move or the wrong move for the team?
I think either way, it's better than Zach Wilson or anything they have right now. I mean, I do like your thought process of getting Derek Carr, good quarterback, still better than what they have now, and of course, makes the whole cap situation makes it more flexible for the Jets. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is great still. I mean, you talk about that decision you'd have to make at the end of next year. That's a better decision. That's a better problem than anything the Jets are facing right now with what they have. So I just think as long as they get someone else, then they're just in a better spot. And I think who knows what they can do with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they can go on a Super Bowl run and, a lot can change in a year, right? So I do like that idea of Derek Carr, though. He's still a very good quarterback.
Now, despite that, when you look into Zach Wilson's career, those who don't know, Zach Wilson in his sophomore year at BYU got benched mid-season, and in his junior year played his way along with a very interesting pro day to the second pick. Now, entering his third season with controversy again and getting benched again, Do you think there's a possibility that we can see the Zach Wilson at BYU
Sure.
that went 11-1, beat a ranked Coastal Carolina, could have won a conference because BYU doesn't play in a conference, but I think they could have won a conference like the Mountain West, like a decently ranked conference with BYU. So do you think you can see that step from Zach Wilson?
Anything can happen. I mean, I don't know. He just looks very bad. I mean, last 3 games, must-win games, 15 points,
That's
in
true.
total, 3 games. And that's just 3 games in total, but that's not
But
the
I mean,
only sample.
you can make a
could
comment
take.
as well. He beat Aaron Rodgers. He went out
Sure.
and beat Aaron Rodgers away
Yeah.
in a game that they should not have won.
But then, I mean, you got the Patriots, all the other big games.
He beat Buffalo as well. He beat Buffalo. He
Sure.
beat Miami. He's done games like that.
Somehow, though, then you got the Patriots. That game.
They've been the Jets kryptonite for years.
I remember I was watching that game too, and it's just
we all did.
disgraceful
I
because
think.
The Giants getting destroyed against the Lions on one side, and then the other Jets actually in a close game, 3-3.
At least we were in a close game against the Lions.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we all.
At least we made the playoffs.
Fair enough.
My point is, though, are you gonna let this hypothetical stop you from pretty much the short thing?
Nah, I like that idea, but
it's just a question.
It's very interesting because I think you should. In order to start that process of re-signing Quinnen Williams, I think you need to bring back Quincy to a contract that's more team friendly immediately because of that QB situation. I'm talking most I see him making in a year is 8, so you'd pay him like 4 up front, pay him like a 4-year deal, like $24 million, but like make it backloaded as hell, and then find a way to get Quinnen on with a 1 year of whatever he wants, and then the next few years make it more cap friendly to help out the possibility with Derek Carr. So it's a very interesting situation, a situation that, I mean, you start the season with -$3 million in cap space, and with the moves that I personally made an over the cap, they're up to $17 million before signing anyone. That's very concerning. But I see there could be trades in order. I mean, I think trading John Franklin Myers is a possibility. I see a lot of people getting traded. Like, I think maybe even moving, as desperate as this could possibly be, I think moving DJ Reed could be a possibility if you can get a good value for him. Even though he's good, his cap hit's ridiculous. Another guy's cap hit's ridiculous. Laken Tomlinson's making $17.5 million. Now, granted, he's good, but I don't see him being $17.5 million worthy. Now, does that? I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's a possibility where Corey Davis and possibly someone else could be gone due to their cap hits this season of $13 million. I think him and John Franklin Myers could not be on the roster at the beginning of next season. Now, does that mean the Jets draft a receiver in the upcoming draft? It's possible. But I also don't rule out the Jets drafting a quarterback this year. There's some good quarterbacks. If the Jets decide to move down, which is possible, don't be surprised if they go after a quarterback either. I like the safeties in the class. I think the Jets need safety. And maybe a little bit of help outside linebacker. Quan Alexander did great. I think they need a 4th. And of course, you never can get enough offensive line.
Can I add something to that?
Sure, absolutely.
I just want to say, though, before we end off here at the Jets, is that, I just want to take it from the perspective of Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, right? So, hypothetically, if the Jets have another 7-win season next year, I think that Saleh and Douglas could get fired. I think that's a very real possibility. I think they could be on the hot seat. But so what I'm saying here is you've taken it from their perspective, right? The Jets have really never had a great franchise quarterback. I like your idea of Derek Carr, but I don't think it's that far out of the possibility the Jets throw that 1st-round pick for Aaron Rodgers. No, I don't know if he's the best fit. I don't know if you'd rather have Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr, but the way I see it is I think the Jets are going to be very aggressive because I think that ultimately Robert Saleh, I liked what he did this year. I think he's a pretty good coach, but the fact of the matter is in today's NFL, a lot of defensive head coaches really don't have you don't really have a long leash. The only real example we can really think of is Sean McDermott in Buffalo, but that's just because they've had such sustained success. I like what Robert Saleh is doing. I think the Jets have a good coach to them, but I just think that if they can't get the offense going, they're not going to think that he's the answer going forward. So I think in that situation, it's going to be urgent. And I think that the Jets might go for an Aaron Rodgers, but definitely you have to get a quarterback, whether that's Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, even Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know if that's what they're going to go for, but one of those, the Jets need that. But I think we can move on from the Jets now because we have another topic to get into.
One more comment real quick. You brought up Garoppolo. The Jets better not sign him. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is not as – I think there's a situation in free agency when we do our free agency preview in March where Jimmy Garoppolo does not sign for a long time. I think that's a very big possibility because of the money he could be demanding, the stuff he did at the end of his tenure in San Francisco, possible toxicity. I don't know. It's a very interesting situation, but we'll dive into the NFL playoffs. We're going to skip all the BS from up until the NFC and AFC championship game. We'll begin with Colin with, I think, the more boring title game from last weekend, the NFC title game. Colin, would you like to kick us off with that?
Sure, why not? So the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I personally thought this was going to be a great football game because, on paper, I think the 49ers and the Eagles have the two best rosters in football. I think that top to bottom, those are two of the most complete teams in the league. Well, what happened? Well, the 49ers played without a quarterback. So Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the guy who was really taking the league by storm, kind of having a Tom Brady storyline who we're going to get into after this. Brock Purdy, got hurt on that first drive. I think they said he tore his UCL. He's going to be out for 6 months.
Tommy
John.
He's out next season as well.
Did they say that?
Yeah.
Because the report I saw was 6 months, but yeah, that changes a lot. But Brock Purdy being out there, and he couldn't even throw the ball. Then Josh Johnson came in, a guy who has been in the league for, I believe it has now been 15 years. Also a former Giant. I mean, he's basically played for every single team in the league, this guy. But he came in as a fourth-string quarterback, and he got concussed pretty early on. And the 49ers didn't have a quarterback. Personally, if you ask me, I think they should have just tried to make Christian McCaffrey throw a couple balls. Triple option, yeah, but they didn't end up going for that, and the Eagles steamrolled them 31-7, and an outcome that many saw coming. It was a big letdown because I think that the San Francisco defense did a pretty good job on the Eagles in that first half, limiting them. Granted, that fumble by Josh Johnson made it a 21-7 game, but overall, I think that was a pretty easy one for the Eagles. Many people have said, I think that there some merit to it. People think the Eagles had the easiest path to the Super Bowl, one of the easiest paths to the Super Bowl of all time, because, you played a Giants team who, sure, the Giants were a great story, but we can all admit the Giants were not the more talented team by any stretch of the imagination, and a 49ers team without a quarterback. But we'll get into the Eagles, especially next week in our Super Bowl preview. But the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl, much to our dismay. The Empire State Building lit up green. That was a very bad moment for all of New York, but yeah, congratulations, Eagles. Hope you don't win in 2 weeks. But San Francisco going forward, going to be a huge question. If you, like you said, Purdy can't play next year, then you think it's going to be Trey Lance. But
it is confirmed.
If it is confirmed, then yes. At first I was thinking there could be a quarterback competition between Purdy and Lance. But then if you put that into perspective for Brock Purdy, say he doesn't come back until the following season. I mean, what does Brock Purdy's market look like? I think there could be a couple teams who are interested. I think that there's a real possibility there. I mean, you're looking at a rookie who had great stats, sure, it was an easy system. It was a great roster, but I think a lot of teams are going to be calling about Brock Purdy. I don't think that's that too out of the range of the possibility to say. But Chris, what were your thoughts for that game?
I mean, I didn't really have any thoughts. It's just crazy how dominant the Eagles. I mean, come on, talk about an easy route to the Super Bowl. I mean, destroying both your opponents, 2 games because you played so well in the regular season. I mean, gave up 14 points in 2 games. I mean, I guess a sneak peek to my Super Bowl prediction. I don't think this is going to be a very fun Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for Philly. And I know it's a challenge finally, but God, I mean, the 49ers going into that game, obviously, like we said, it was going to be a great game because it just looked like, it looked like a great game on paper. I mean, the 49ers have all these phenomenal weapons, right? And Brock Purdy looked like a rising star out of nowhere. And then he gets hurt, and it's just crazy. And now, obviously, I know this game is not going to be in Philly anymore. It's going to be in Arizona, but I really think the Eagles are going to win this Super Bowl. I guess we get your thoughts.
I mean, that game was not. I didn't really get to watch much of it, but at the end of the day, Brock Purdy, you talked about his possible market. There is a market for him, even because I know the 7th round picks, they're not on long contracts. No, sir. So that's going to be a very interesting situation. I think a team that could target him if he's a free agent next season, if he is, could be the Atlanta Falcons if they give up on Desmond Ridder. I think it's a very big possibility. I could see that as a possibility in multiple other teams. Tennessee could be an option if they give up on Tannehill. So at the end of the day, Philadelphia well-deserved win. But easy games. I mean, they made the Giants look like a piece of paper, how far they blew them out of the water. Same with 49ers, but that's because of their inconsistencies. But there's an interesting post on Twitter from that's deleted from Quinn Williams that I wanted to bring up. And that was going after Nick Bosa for saying that they don't have an offense. Yeah, that was funny. But at the end of the day, Quinn, I feel like he will stay a Jet, but we don't need to talk about the Jets anymore. They're done. Who knows what they're going to do. We get to talk about them later on, but we'll now dive into the game that everyone was probably looking more forward to after that disappointing start, and it got controversial. I'll begin on this one with Cincinnati and Kansas City. I didn't like the headline anyway. I thought this is when they said that the league is scripted. Who knows? Maybe the league is scripted, but besides the fact, I feel bad for Joe Osai. I think that's his name, Joseph Osai, right? For that hit. I want to comment on that hit real quick. I don't know what you want him to do because we said this when Washington played Philly, that when Taylor Heineke went down, I thought that the hit he did was preventable because he could have gone like around Taylor Heineke. This one's different because Mahomes is going out of bounds. He's not making himself defenseless. He takes one step and he kind of lunges a little bit. If you really look deep into the play, he's trying to move forward, like kind of dive a little bit. Osai nowhere to go because the angle he looked at, when you look at this more closely, he's trying to go in front of and like juke out Mahomes. So I don't know at the end of the day what you want him to do as a defensive mastermind like myself. Like where do you want him to go? That's the question that a lot of people have been asking. But at the end of the day, Kansas City moves on predictably and probably going to be the most boring. I think the Super Bowl is going to be very boring. I think it's going to be if Phillies plays defense, they should win. But I get to talk about that next week. But at the end of the day, you feel bad for Cincinnati. I don't like that people are going after Osai. I feel bad for the dude. But at the end of the day, can you make an argument that that hit's unnecessary? Yeah. But at the end of the day, I don't know what you want him to do. Colin, your thoughts? Chris, your thoughts. Apologies.
Yeah, I mean, watching the end of that game, I mean, overall, I know that there was a lot of talk about the Bengals talking a lot of smack before the game and Eli Apple, whatnot, right? I mean, I was rooting for the Bengals just because I want a different Super Bowl champion, right? Because now going to the Super Bowl, I mean, as a Giant, I mean, I guess Chiefs, but like that's just, I feel like they've been in the Super Bowl a couple of years now. I would have wanted the Bengals still, but the Chiefs are moving on, and the thing with Joseph also, I mean, I just think people are going a little too harsh, being a little too harsh on him. I mean, I think there's a line where that people are crossing that's just not right.
Yeah, I agree.
And I know it's the playoffs and the tensions are high, and that's the biggest moment you could be in as a player. But everyone, I mean, I just think people are being too harsh.
Well, there was some more controversy as well. If you remember, the Chiefs got an extra down on the 3rd and 9, which was I forgot the reason as to why. Did they say that was because of the clock? Or?
I don't know.
The Chiefs got an extra down there. There's a lot of
and then they converted it.
A lot of people saying the game was rigged, but going to that Joseph Osai play, I just think that by textbook that probably is a correct call because Mahomes is out of bounds. But it's just hate to see a game end that way. I mean, in that moment, the AFC Championship game, you hate to see the Super Bowl or the AFC champion get represented just based off that call because. There's 8 seconds left in the game. You figure that unless the Chiefs couldn't get an outside shot, the game would have went to overtime. And that would have been the first ever time we could have seen the new overtime rules where both teams get the ball. And I think I would have loved to have seen that with Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, but ultimately the game got decided off of that. Now, granted, you feel bad for Joseph Osai. You feel bad for you kind of feel bad for the Bengals. But yeah, Chris was even talking about that. There's a lot of talk before this game. We had Burrowhead Stadium. We had the Cincinnati mayor calling for a paternity test with Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. But the Bengals were a fun team. The Chiefs, you have to give credit to them though, just for how long they've been able to stay on top. They're kind of establishing themselves as the New England Patriots of the AFC. Always making it to the AFC Championship game, being a threat. And that's always going to happen when you have the best quarterback in the league because Patrick Mahomes is the engine that keeps his team running. If you remember, he had that ankle injury against Jacksonville, and he seemed to recover from that quicker than anyone really else in any NFL history coming off an ankle injury. He really seemed to have no problems there, winning the game with his legs. And, if the Chiefs are going to win Super Bowl 57, it's going to be because of number 15. Him and Travis Kelce, it's just Patrick Mahomes is the engine that keeps his team running, and if they're gonna go on, it's gonna be because of Patrick Mahomes. But moving on, we have to address the other huge story in the NFL, and that just happened yesterday morning. The greatest player of all time, Tom Brady, has officially decided to call it quits, walking away from the game of football after 23 illustrious seasons. Now, I think this time it's for real. Last year we had the time where after the 40-day period he came back, but I think this time it's finally done. I want to talk about Tom Brady's career for a little bit. I remember I did this last year on me and Chris's show after he retired the first time, but I feel like you have to do it again here. So, Tom Brady, everyone knows the story. 6th-round draft pick, it was back up in college, eventually was able to start at Michigan, got to the NFL, was a backup in the NFL behind Drew Bledsoe. Then Bledsoe suffered a horrific injury against the New York Jets. The New York Jets started Tom Brady's career, by the way.
We did.
Yep, and Tom Brady took over in that 2001 season and led that team to the Super Bowl. winning the New England Patriots' first ever Super Bowl. Then he won a couple more in 2003 and 2004, starting the dynasty in New England. And at that point, he already was solidified as an all-time great quarterback. But, there's a 10-year period where the Patriots did not win anything. I mean, you had that period where it was Brady and Randy Moss, losing to the Giants in the Super Bowl both times. Very great moments for me. But, Brady was racking up MVP awards. He was racking up stats. But many felt that, you just couldn't really be a champion anymore with Tom Brady. Well, that changed in 2014. And it didn't look like it was going to happen at first because if you remember, there's a big catch by Jermaine Kearse, which set the Seahawks up inside the field, inside the goal line. And we all know what happened. Marshawn Lynch did not run the football. Russell Wilson threw, intercepted by Malcolm Butler, and Brady got his fourth ring. And just like that, Brady was back on top. And guess what? He solidified his greatest of all time status in Super Bowl 51 with that 28-3 comeback. Still, in my opinion, the greatest game that I've ever seen. And I don't think we're ever going to see, kind of a performance like that, at least in that big of a stage. Just, everyone thinking that game was over, really just able to lead that team, getting his fifth Super Bowl ring. The sixth one obviously came a little bit later against the Rams. And then he left New England and went to Tampa Bay. And immediately, Tampa Bay for years, it was a losing team, had a losing culture. Well, he changed that right away. His first season there, he captured his seventh Super Bowl title. And, even his last couple of years in Tampa Bay, still competitive, I think even, this year is kind of started, you kind of saw the decline a little bit, but even then, even last year, 45-year-old Tom Brady was still a top 10 quarterback. He was still a guy who, a lot of teams would love to have. And he always did what he set out to do. For years, he was always saying how he wanted to play till age 45, and I even thought back then that's a ridiculous goal, but I mean, you gotta give him credit. He did it, just this guy truly just had one of the most remarkable careers I think we'll ever see. You talk about the greatest of all times in all sports, you look at Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Wayne Gretzky, for MLB, whether you consider it to be Babe Ruth or someone else. I really think Tom Brady stands above them all. I really do, because just seeing a guy in this modern age just have the amount of longevity and success that he did, the NFL is a hard league to win. The salary cap, players come in and out. Even a star tight end or a star wide receiver, their career may only be like, under 10 years, maybe like 8 years or so that are at the top. So seeing Tom Brady just with all that turnover, all those changes, the way the NFL set up, just such a short game season, for him to be as dominant for as long as he was, I mean, it's truly remarkable. I really don't think anyone's ever going to top his legacy. I think it's going to be super hard to see. Patrick Mahomes, is the only guy you can think of currently in the league who maybe has a chance. But even then, he lost to a 43-year-old Brady in the Super Bowl when he was in his prime. So it's just tough to see. Yeah. But, the old era of quarterbacks that, kind of we all grew up watching is now over. If you count Aaron Rodgers, I mean, I think I still do. But, the Tom Brady's, the Ben Roethlisbergers, Phillip Rivers, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, all those guys, Drew Brees, that era is kind of now over. And it's sad to see. But, I don't think you really know what you have until it's gone. And I think that next year and going forward, I think the NFL is really going to miss Tom Brady. And I'm going to miss Tom Brady too, because, sure, he gave the Giants 2 Super Bowls. I'm sure Robbie hated Tom Brady for a lot of years. But you just have to respect it, man. Tom Brady, I hope you have a great retirement, going onto the Fox booth to be the main broadcaster there. But I think, just the greatest of all time, thank you for all you did to the game of football. You guys have any other thoughts you want to say on Tom Brady?
I mean, yeah, it's just, it feels so weird because I woke up to the notification and I was just not fazed by it at all, because it just,
you didn't think it was real
after last. No, I mean, I knew it was real, and now it's kind of like said, it feels like, okay, yeah, he's actually retiring, and it feels special. But it's just, at first, after what happened last year, it just felt like, oh, here we go again, kind of. Even though it's probably, it's definitely, I think that's it. Especially considering, he went out to the beach and it just seemed perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, just an incredible career. I mean, you pretty much said everything. It's as good of a career as an athlete can have. I mean, coming out being picked, and what was it, like
199?
Yeah, like very far.
There's always
very highly touted at all.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you could talk about some of the greatest athletes of all time. He's definitely up there with your. I mean, I don't even think some players like. I think there's really like an elite category. There's like, you have to think like even like a guy like Gretzky in hockey, or like a Messi in soccer. Like, it's got to be like guys who played a long time and were great with everyone they played with, and pretty much achieved everything. Like, there's a certain level that Tom Brady's reached that it's just so special, and it's awesome.
No, you guys said it perfectly. I mean, at the end of the day, I hated having to watch him beat my Jets every week. I think every Jets fan will say, like, yay, he's gone. It's weird to see him leave. I mean, when I saw when you saw the writing on the wall when you saw his play decline over the course of this season, not being able to make the certain throws. No one's gonna. I don't think anyone. I mean, I remember this moment very well when that roughing the passer with the Falcons, where he was just tackled normally. It's gonna be weird seeing the speculations that he's paying the refs, but at the end of the day, we got to move on. And we head to Major League Baseball. We're gonna go more into some of the other names later on. I just got a few names for you guys to think about. We're gonna begin with a Mets player. We're gonna go into a Met and a Yankee today. We're gonna begin with the Carlos Correa saga.
Oh man,
The pain and suffering that I went through for this. Carlos Correa, why did you do this? Why? Why did you have?
It was him.
I mean, Scott
I
Boras
think it's
too.
just an unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I feel more bad for the Giants. Actually,
Yeah.
no, I don't feel bad for the Giants. This is their fault. But at the end of the day, he goes back to the Twins, a team that could contend. I mean, he's getting paid a lot.
No,
I still don't think they're going to win the division. I think if the White Sox figure it out, which I don't think they will,
it's interesting.
I think Cleveland wins that division again. The cheap boys in Cleveland.
And they they got Josh Bell.
Yes.
Who's good. But I really like that from Minnesota. Correct. They needed that.
Their pitching is horrible. I mean, it's not
actually
great.
not as bad.
I mean, it's not great. It's not great, but it's not AL Central winning.
They got
worthy.
Pablo Lopez. They got Sonny Gray.
I forgot about that trade. That's
they got Joe Ryan, who was good last year. They got a couple young guys. It's not a great baseball team, but they made themselves more relevant by that signing. They really needed that. For those of you who don't know, Correa, probably the best player on the free agent market, heading out. Obviously,
third best
after Judge and Rodon even.
I'd say Trey Turner. Yeah, that's what I was
Correa was the best, and there was a point he was the top free agent available. And the San Francisco Giants had this big ego coming out in this offseason saying they're not going to get outbid for Aaron Judge, and they're going to spend all this money. And they got Mitch Haniger, they got Michael Conforto, they got someone else.
They got Sean Manaea.
Yeah. And it just seemed like Correa was the perfect fit, right? He's
like that heir to Brandon Crawford, like
too.
The defensive magician.
Gonna be hated by the Dodgers for years to come. It just seemed perfect, right? They got their franchise guy, and it just did not shock me, that signing at all, apart from the 13 years.
It actually did me for a little bit, because I think if you're the Giants, what are they trying to do? Because you have the division with the Dodgers and the Padres. They're not going away anytime soon. Your best bet's a wild card. Why are you trying to build through free agency and not try to develop prospects? That's the part I don't understand.
They have a lot of money.
They do,
and they.
But you could
really,
suck with a lot
like
of money and keep
because
the money.
They reward their fan base, right? They're not going to sit there and do what the Tigers did, and they're just going to be irrelevant for years. The Tigers don't look like. I don't know if they're.
I'm confused about them too. There's another team I'm confused about.
They've just been relevant for so long. They have this young core with Spencer Torkelson, who was like mid last year. I don't even know what he did.
He batted .250.
All the rookies were J-Rod and
it was because he overshadowed everyone.
Yeah,
and that's what I think. To touch on the Mariners briefly, I think the Mariners are in a phenomenal spot now. I think they should have got more bullpen, but that's just when we go into free agency this spring training preview in a couple of weeks. We'll dive into that more, but I want to get into Colin's reaction, because you're more of a Yankees guy. Carlos Rodon to the Yankees. I hated this because I did not think he was going to go to the Yankees. I didn't think he was going to go to the Mets. Another player screwing the Giants. How fun. I think that was a good theme. I think it's a good theme for this offseason for baseball. Screw the Giants and the Mets. I think screw the black and orange teams. I don't know. But at the end of the day, Rodon's a Yankee. Big thing for you guys, because it's a little bit of a struggle with the starting pitching, I think, at points over the course of last season. Well, let's get your take into it real quick.
I mean, yeah, obviously Carlos Rodon is going to help out this Yankees pitching a lot, because you can never have enough pitching. And, you look at the Yankees' future rotation, you're looking at Garrett Cole, Rodon, Nestor Cortez, Luis Severino, Frankie Montes. Hopefully he can bounce back. We still yet to be seen. But, I think Rodon's a good fit for that team, because we saw the past couple of years, he was a guy who just a couple of years ago kind of really broke out of nowhere, but he's proven himself to be a good starter in this league. And I think that, the Yankees paid him a lot of money as well, but I think that in that starting lineup, I like Carlos Rodon's fit there. And, but just my biggest problem with the Yankees offseason in general is I really don't think the lineup got much better. I don't think the lineup really improved at all. I mean,
Didn't change.
What's your outfield, dude?
Didn't change.
Your outfield's
didn't
horrible.
change because
The outfield's an
we still don't have a left fielder at this moment. I
Yeah.
mean, we have Harrison Bader, Aaron
Yeah.
Judge in the outfield. I mean, that's
Doesn't have Hicks?
We technically still have Aaron Hicks, but he's like been like thrown to the
You can
side.
stand
Like
in
we're
left. You can do
But-
whatever
No.
you want in left.
that's still my biggest problem with the Yankees. Though. Like, I like Rodon. I think that, you could always need pitchers, but I think that the biggest problem with the team in the playoffs was still the lineup. I remember I talked about it, even back when the Yankees were in the playoffs before. Just so many guys were just not batting well. And I don't think that a lot of these guys are going to be able to perform in a postseason batting lineup. So it's still yet to be seen. There's still more offseason to go, but you just need to improve that lineup or else you're going to have the exact same result. Maybe Carlos Rodon can give you a good big performance in a playoff game, but what does that matter if your whole entire lineup is going 0 for 3 or 0 for 4? What if Aaron Hicks is 0 for 4 in a playoff game, or even Oswaldo Cabrera comes in and he's 0 for 2, and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa comes in and he has 2 groundouts to second base. I mean, does it really matter? I mean, I like the Rodon sign. Don't get me wrong. I think he adds a lot to that starting lineup, but in order for me to feel better about the Yankees, I need to see actual changes happen to this lineup. There's been a lot of talk about Brian Reynolds. Still yet to be seen what happens there, but I'm sure Chris, you also have a strong opinion about this as well.
Right. I loved the signing. Absolutely loved the signing. You see, and I still have gripes with this team, right? Because I got to give all credit to Hal Steinbrenner. He stepped up big time. He brought in Aaron Judge like he was supposed to. They brought back the guys they were supposed to bring back, Rizzo, Judge. Then they brought in the guy who was like the luxury piece, the Carlos Rodon, which is an incredible signing. I love the signing because he was the best starter available. They didn't try to do like a 1-year deal to Corey Kluber, right, and try to experiment, right. Right.
For someone like really bad.
Right. Like a guy like Jamison Tyone. Like I liked the trade. It ends up working out. He wasn't great, but he wasn't supposed to be. But they're finally stepping up and getting the best guy available. If Rodon somehow sucks or he never pitches, that's fine because he was the front office, the ownership did everything they could with that starting rotation. Now Frankie Montas is hurt, so they're actually looking for a 5th starter. I think Domingo Germán is going to be that. I don't think that's gonna be it.
I don't think you need to make a move for really anyone.
But yeah, they have not improved the lineup at all. It's the same exact lineup as last season, which was the reason they got exited. They got bounced in the playoffs.
I believe Josh Donaldson's still staying at third base.
He
correct?
is.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
And you guys know how I feel about that. Now, if I somehow had to choose between, because I think one of them goes at least between Aaron Hicks or Donaldson to stay, I think I keep Donaldson. Because at the very least, Donaldson, right, 1 more year of him, he's at the very least, and I had to hear this all the time, but it's the truth. I'll admit, he is a very good defender. At the very least, he plays his defense. He plays his position very well defensively, and with the bat, he was clutch at times. Hicks was futile the entire season. I think he had like 3-4 highlights, and they all came in June. Useless, terrible. Defensively, offensively, just terrible baseball player.
And also,
and
please, can
here.
Oswald Peraza be the opening day shortstop?
Yes,
not Isaiah
exactly.
Kiner-Falefa. I do not want to see Isaiah Kiner-Falefa start 120 games at shortstop for
Exactly.
the Yankees next year, especially with the guys we have coming up. Like, you just can't
It
have
is-
that happen.
He's the definition of just like a fill-in player. Now he has the role of potentially, right, and this is where I think moving Donaldson helps is right. Then DJ comes in. That's the thing. You have a lot of infielders right now. A ton of infielders. Gleyber Torres is a guy who, look, I'm kind of in the middle with him. I don't see him being part of the future plans. I think he has value, and I just like having. I want to go with that infield of Volpe and Peraza up the middle, just something different, something new, something exciting. But Gleyber Torres is all right. Like he had a good year last year, and I think you see, moving Hicks and Donaldson to me is like an improvement. Like that alone, like Gleyber Torres is kind of like, all right, we're making changes. Donaldson and Hicks, that's like at the top of my list to get rid of.
But
Like
Chris,
to
who
move.
would you get for left field? Who would
For
be your
left field,
choice?
one guy who I look at I loved Andrew Benintendi. You guys know how I think I said this on air. If I had to and this is a useless thing to say, but if I had to choose between Rizzo or Benintendi, I probably would have chose Benintendi over Anthony Rizzo because I really thought Benintendi's fit in this lineup was beautiful, batting second behind DJ LeMahieu. It worked. You guys saw it. I mean, he was really good, and I don't know if they would have beat the Astros with Benintendi, but it would have definitely made that lineup a lot better. And I know I don't think they let him go. He signed a very team-friendly deal with the White Sox. I don't think that's the only reason he didn't come back to the Yankees. I think there was the idea of him not wanting to play in New York or that, and he wanted to go to Chicago, smaller, big city, I guess. I don't know. But Brian Reynolds is another option, but he's going to cost a lot. And if I don't think they're going to give up Peraza Volpe for him because they didn't do that for Matt Olson last year. And I think it would have been better to get Correa and Olson and play that way instead of trading Peraza now for Brian Reynolds.
I like that.
And that's why there's the whole a lot of fans are complaining about the Frankie Montas thing and why you went after Montas instead of Luis Castillo. Castillo is going to cost your entire farm system. I can't blame. I guys know how critical I am of Cashman. I can't blame him for not getting. I can't blame him for getting Montas. Looks like a failed trade now because that was the second best pitcher available. I mean, and those pitchers that
the
you
Mariners
give up for him mean nothing.
The Mariners they threw the kitchen sink.
They needed it
for
Castillo.
You
didn't miss the playoffs for 20
and that's
years.
been a phenomenal sign. Look what that's got them now. When we see teams go after certain pitchers, and then they sign a contract immediately afterwards, that some of them, not all, have turned out to be flops. My biggest example, look at what Jose Barrios has done with Minnesota. Was that Cy Young possible contender, that dark horse to win it, to having a 5 ERA under $20 million. He's getting paid what Josh Donaldson gets paid. Right. Pretty much what Josh Donaldson gets paid.
I don't know. But I think I'd rather have Barrios.
I mean, I know you'd rather have Jose Barrios, but at the end of the day, I mean, you said Donaldson or Hicks. Hicks, I got to watch him in person a lot. He was getting folded. I mean, a lot of his swings, he was getting what we call a sword. Going by check swing and getting falling down. We saw it I saw it in Boston. I saw it when I was at Yankee Stadium when he played the Rays, getting destroyed by Shane McClanahan, which is kind of hilarious. But at the end of the day, you don't really have a choice. I mean, I think you got to keep both of them now, but I think one of them could get moved at the deadline. Right. I think it's a real possibility.
That's the thing. And I guess continuing, right, we're talking about left field. There's one guy I look at as a real possibility is Jurickson Profar.
Ooh,
he spent last year with the San Diego Padres. I guess defensively, not phenomenal, but he's made some really good plays, got a really good arm. He's got some power in the bat.
I thought you were going to sign Tommy Pham before the Mets got him.
I mean, he's all right.
He's better than Aaron Hicks.
Switch hitter, pretty agile.
What is with you guys and switch hitters?
We don't have many.
Yeah, Aaron Hicks.
Yeah, that's it.
No, I remember you were targeting them at points though. That's why.
Yeah, because you need balance.
The Mets don't have one,
and
I don't think we do at least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna. I think waiting for the deadline is kind of weird because you could see that's gonna be where guys cost the most.
You could see though in a random emergence, and we saw this with Donaldson because he had that one weird good first half, and then he went to the Braves and played well, and then got paid that terrible contract by the Twins.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from with this. But I think you want to wrap it up real quick before we head to our next segment.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what else with this team? I mean, in free agency, I'm
bullpen. What are you doing
with the Yankees?
Yeah. Did you just sign anyone?
I mean, I think the bullpen.
Anything notable?
The bullpen is nowhere near the problem. They signed Tommy Kahnle. Chad Green signed with the Blue Jays.
That was great.
That's more of
great.
a meme.
That was great.
That's more of a meme kind of sadness, but it's it's true. I look, Chad Green was actually good. 2017.
Oh my God, I remember
2017 probably the best.
I remember him watching him do that season as a Mets fan. I'm like, can we trade for this guy? Can we throw a million prospects at him?
He was a reliever that actually was talked about by people. I think.
And now he's totally trash.
I know he's hurt.
Falling off.
He's not going to play next year. He's not. I don't think he's going to be on the team next year. Oh, he's on
the Blue Jays.
Literally on the Blue Jays, but I don't think he's going to play for them. That's what I meant to say. The bullpen's good. I mean, they brought in Tommy Kahnle, who was an arm. We know. Closer, I hope Clay Holmes can be that guy he was in the first half.
Why don't you fall off a cliff? Calling it now. He's going to have a 3.5 ERA, and someone else random's going to emerge. You're going to trade for Lucas Sims. Go trade for Lucas Sims. That'll be fun.
He's good. I guess I'm glad there's no more big contracts in this bullpen anymore.
True.
Chapman. I love Marinaccio. I see him as a possible trade candidate. I don't want to trade him. I think he's a phenomenal right-handed arm.
I like Loaizaga.
I love Loaizaga.
Loaizaga, I think he's underrated.
He could be the closer.
He should
Trevino is decent.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
he should not be your closer.
No, not the closer, but a decent arm.
Fair enough. But
I think Marinaccio could eventually.
I think it was funny that all the old players were going to the Royals because that's the only people the Royals could get. Yeah. I mean, they signed Zach Greinke again, and then they got Chapman. I thought that was
Yeah.
that's a meme team in a nutshell.
Yeah,
But
I don't know what they're doing.
at the end of the day, I did write something when we did the Instagram post that I did have some Iona basketball, brief take on Iona basketball. And I did say some bold stuff in that Instagram post. So I'll just make my point real quick. Last time you joined us with Iona basketball, they had 2 losses. Well, they've lost a good amount of games since then, losing 20 plus to Quinnipiac and Siena away. Well, you didn't really see it was a little bit of a concern for Iona basketball. You saw it in Hawaii. When they started to get that trend of blowing leads, they blew a 15 point lead to at the time 3-9 SMU. By the way, SMU is actually doing much better. But at the end of the day, then they blew that lead to Manhattan a couple weeks ago. And then they blew a giant lead and an L to Rider. The first home loss, I think it was like 20-something games. But you watched the Iona game on Sunday. They went out, played Quinnipiac at home. Your revenge game. That game to make a statement, to go out and be a top 3 team in the league. Well, you go down 20-4, and all hope was lost. Down 45-28 at the half. No one thought you were going to come back. Well, Iona comes out and says, screw that. We're going to try to actually form an identity for once, and we're going to try to make a comeback. And they did, led by Danish Jenkins, Nelly Jr. Joseph, who I forgot to mention multiple times on this show, and Walter Clayton Jr. hitting every 3 imaginable. Now, you also saw emerging pieces from the bench. Anton Brookshire had a 7-0 run by himself. That was actually kind of fun to watch. You saw defense like much better, much more crisp, moving around, much more communication. You saw Rick Pitino have points from where I was saying, yelling at the guys on the floor, communicate more, make more plays. And they got a lot of steals, really forced Quinnipiac and Desi Jones for Quinnipiac, who is ridiculous. He had 25 in the game, to make more contested shots because they were leaving him open all day in the beginning of the second half. That's the only reason Quinnipiac was even able to stay in this game. But at the end of the day, Iona now sitting 3rd in the league behind Ryder, who came out of left field, and Siena, who was projected to finish in mid-table at the beginning of the year. I said Iona will win this league in December. I'm sticking with that take. This is Iona's time where they're going to come out of nowhere and surprise people. This is their time. You go out and get that win against Quinnipiac. This is your chance to prove you are a real contender. I think winning out is bold because you have some tough games remaining. You got Ryder away. You got Manhattan at home, which is going to be a very fun game in a couple of weeks. And you got Siena at home. You need to win. I think Siena at home is the biggest game they're going to play all year. Because if you can get that win, if you can beat you have 2 games at hand against the top 2 teams in this league. If they can find a way to win those 2 games, they're going to be right in the mix with it at the end of the season. I think it's a real possibility that Iona could not win the regular season back with 2 games back with a couple of games at hand. I think it's a very big possibility, and I think they could still win this whole thing. I think with the draw they could get, it could result in them possibly playing Ryder in the semifinals, which would be a very fun semifinal because both of the teams are actually better than Ryder's way better than they were supposed to be. And Iona has a very, very good team this year that just has been underperforming. But at the end of the day, this is Iona's chance to get revenge on everyone else from last season. That disappointing finish, this is their time. I feel like like I said, with the identity of now, yeah, we can come from behind. We can make chances. We can make plays down 17 and not give up during a game. I think this is their chance. They go into a big game of Mount St. Mary's tomorrow. I think it's a must-win game. The team towards the bottom of the league. You got a couple games like that with them in Manhattan coming up. You got to take those games at hand, especially Fairfield as well. Another team towards the bottom, Canisius on the road, and Niagara on the road. You got games at hand. Just got to get the job done. Well, you guys got anything on Iona?
I mean, yeah, this was a team that was viewed as by far the best team in the MAC going into the year. Everyone thought that they were going to be the team that be representing the MAC in March Madness, and for good reason. It's the most talented roster in the MAC. I think obviously with Rick Pitino, by far the best coach in the MAC as well. But I think a big problem was that the forward position for Iona's kind of faced a lot of injuries. You got Quinn Selzinski, who's going to be out for the year. You also had injuries to Michael Jefferson as well. But the forward position, it's definitely going to need some work. But I feel very confident in the guards that we have. I feel very confident in the big men that we have. And I think that still, even with those injuries, I still feel confident that this team can withstand that. Now, granted, always in that format, though, with the MAC, with a single game elimination in the MAC tournament, I think still really anything can happen. But, even if Iona goes in there with the third or second best record, you still have to think that they have the best chance because they're the most talented team. And obviously with Rick Pitino, you think that they are. So just obviously going forward, like Robbie said, you have to win those games down the stretch, but hoping for the best for Iona. I think there's a real chance they could go dancing. And I think for everyone here, us included, everyone at the school, it'd be awesome to see happen. So as always, go Gales.
Right. I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't gone to many of the games, right? I went to probably 2, I think, with you guys.
Yeah.
They're a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, as Colin said,
Phenomenal
the
atmosphere.
big men,
Best one in the league.
the big men, the 3-point shooting it's a lot of fun to watch them play. The Heinz Center goes nuts at these home games, and
You guys missed out on that game
right.
on Sunday. You guys missed out. I'm not gonna lie.
We're gonna try to go tomorrow. I know you guys are
Yeah.
definitely. I'm gonna try to go tomorrow. That's gonna be hopefully fun. Oh, wait, they're playing who?
Mount St.
Mount
Mary's,
St. Mary's.
who went out, by the way, and came back big against Niagara a couple of days ago, which is going to be interesting to see if they can keep their momentum going. Mount St. Mary's has won back-to-back against, granted, Canisius and Niagara. Niagara, team in the middle of the league. Canisius is dead last. I don't know how much that says about Mount St. Mary's, but anything else on
Yeah,
that?
I don't really have much else to add. I mean, I know they're now second right in the MAC.
Yeah,
Is
they're
that true?
third.
Behind Siena.
Third
behind
Third,
who?
half game behind Ryder, and then
Okay.
a game behind Ryder and 2 behind Siena, with games ahead.
Still
against both of
possible
them.
to win, obviously. I mean, yeah, I don't really have much else to add. It's just I obviously the most talented team in the MAC and best coach, I would assume,
sure.
most popular coach at least, and the best. It's a great team, and I'd love to see them. I think just getting into March Madness would
be a dream, wouldn't it? Be
unreal.
One last thing to mention before we go into our question of the day: watch out for Cruz Davis. He shot a little bit cold down when it was cold here in January. I think he's gonna be the guy that heats it up for the freshman. He's starting a lot of games now. Instead, they're rocking more guards than forwards, which I'm not a fan of personally. But at the end of the day, if you can get the job done, do it any way you can. But our question of the day, it's about the New York Knicks. And where do you how it's about? I don't have the exact question in front of me, but it's about more how good do you think this team is and how far do you think they can go? So I'll begin with the more NBA experts on the show. Colin, we'll start with you.
Well, the Knicks had a pretty disappointing year last year. We all know 2021 was a huge breakout year for them. The first year under Tom Thibodeau, Julius Randle, had a huge year, won the Most Improved Player award, but last year it just didn't really work. So what was the Knicks' response? They got Jalen Brunson from the Dallas Mavericks, and this was a signing which people at first, made fun of the Knicks for the amount of money that got thrown at them. But the fact of the matter remains is that Jalen Brunson is probably the best point guard the Knicks have had in probably over 20 years. I mean, really, you look at the history of the Knicks point guards, you got guys like Raymond Felton, Langston Galloway, a washed Derrick Rose. It really just has the point guard position for the Knicks has been bad. But Jalen Brunson, debatably him or Julius Randle, you can really take your pick, have proven to the best players on this team, And you have RJ Barrett too as a third piece. Now, granted, RJ Barrett has not really lived as much up to the hype that there was prior to the draft, but he's still a 20-point per game scorer, still a guy who, obviously has a lot of talent. He's still pretty young as well. I believe about 23 years old or something around that range. But I think going forward with the Knicks, currently right now I have to check their current record, but it's a well-coached team with Tom Thibodeau, defense, getting prioritized there. Currently, if you look at the standings for the Knicks, they sit at the 7th seed at 27 and 25. So this is definitely going to be a team that makes the play-in tournament at the minimum. They have a chance of making it into the top 6, but the question is going to be as it was in 2021. We saw that when this team got into the playoffs, they really were not that good. Randall struggled. The whole team as a result struggled. So it's really going to come down to how this team's going to perform when that time comes. Jalen Brunson had a huge performances last year for the Mavericks in the playoffs. He had a game against the Jazz where I believe he dropped around 40 points. So I think that, Brunson's going to be the guy who they're going to go to come postseason time. But yeah, overall, I think the Knicks are a pretty good team. And, it's always good for New York when the Knicks are good. Always great to see the Madison Square Garden crowd electrified. But Chris, as the Knicks fan, I want to pass it over to you. What do you think about the Knicks?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a fairly inconsistent season, 27 and 25, right? Seems like they're winning a big game and then losing a tight game. They lost to the Lakers a few nights ago in overtime. I mean, the Lakers aren't playing great basketball, but that's whatever. But they played the Heat today. I mean, that's a big game because they're right behind the Heat. Yeah, I mean, Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson have just been incredible. They've been virtually averaging the same thing. I'm pretty sure. I think both around 25. It's just
something like I think when I look at Randall's numbers, he's averaging like 24.9 points per game, which is just beneath Nikola Jokic.
just a
Who
good.
someone else is mentioning in the chat that about in the Instagram thing about him being better than Jokic. What the hell were you thinking with that take? Just saying on that note, but you can keep going.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they're also on a 2-game losing streak. Also lost to the Nets, but that's a great team as well. I mean, there's no like incredible superstar in this team. It's just they're just playing good basketball. It's just there's not much else to say. And big game tonight at home.
Yeah, and I mean me not watching the Knicks very much. Yeah, I think I'll ask briefly for you guys before we get into our poll question, which is a very interesting one, and I think we had a lot of fun I'll have a lot of fun answering it. Do you think the Knicks need to make a big move at the deadline? Like a brief answer, Colin.
Well, actually, a nickname I saw got called for this next team with Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and RJ Barrett. They actually called it the mid-free, and what that means is the mid-free. They think that this is it's a pretty good team, right? But none of those guys, Brunson, Randle, or RJ Barrett are really a superstar. That's why a lot of talk before the season was with the Knicks and Donovan Mitchell. I really thought that was going to happen. I thought that Donovan Mitchell was the perfect fit for this Knicks team. So obviously, if you're the Knicks, you want to add another superstar because I think this is a good team, but I don't think it's a great team. I think you need a guy like a Donovan Mitchell or someone of that caliber to really take this team to higher levels. But as it stands right now, they're still going to be a good competitive playoff team. And I think for a lot of Knicks fans, I think they're happy with that. For so many years, the Knicks were really a laughingstock, a bad team. But if they keep this core intact, I think they'll be a pretty solid competitive team for years to come. But I think definitely if you actually want to see, the Knicks become a championship contender, I think you do need to make a big move for a star. I'm not sure what that move looks like right now, but I think that if you need that to happen, I think that has to be the case. Or maybe if you're very lucky, RJ Barrett develops into a superstar, but that's still yet to be seen.
No, I really don't have much else to add. I don't know in particular who's available.
There's not really much.
Yeah,
I'll warn you guys now. There is not much.
Yeah, so I don't know what they can do, but there's a couple of names thrown out there, like decent. Like I think wasn't like a Reggie Bullock thrown out there as a
Reggie
name?
Bullock.
That's a former.
I think that was like a name that was brought up though. I don't know if I'm
Markelle Fultz.
I don't know if I'm telling you I don't know if that's like the name, but I'm telling you like it's mid
You guys should go for his trade for like
OG Anunoby was the big
OG
name.
Anunoby.
That was another one.
thinking.
I'm just saying like I'm pretty sure I heard like a former Knick who was like
I think
possibly coming back.
I think a team that you could see dismantle a little bit. What is San Antonio doing? I think San Antonio. I think to incur more picks, get younger. I think you could maybe see them make a move if they have like anything to trade.
Robbie got himself into some dicey territory here.
Yeah.
I don't know what the personal shot of my Spurs was, but
Getting into some
I
dicey
think-
territory here.
I think we're clearly rebuilding. I don't know what you're talking about. I think that
you remind me of like. I'm gonna bring a hockey reference. You're like the Ducks, the Anaheim Ducks. You have a lot of great pieces, but you want to keep trying to go for that first overall pick, and I think you guys Wembanyama, perfect fit for you.
absolutely.
But with the trajectory you're on, the Rockets are worse than you. Why wouldn't you want?
Actually, the NBA changed the rules where the top 3 teams all have the same lottery odds. So as long as you finish in the top 3 worst. I mean, there's a very good chance you can right now. A lot of the games you won were earlier on in the season, but I think that if you're the Spurs right now, Victor Wembanyama, obviously that's your guy. But they're clearly a tanking team. Devin Vassell, I mean, he's still indefinite. We don't know when he's gonna come back.
Trade him.
Trade Devin Vassell. Are you serious?
You can get a first-round pick for him.
He's one of our core franchise players. It's him and Keldon Johnson right now. But yeah,
Who else do you have in that core then?
It's Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, and then the complimentary guys. You have a Trey Jones here. You have
Trey Jones. Actually, I think he's underrated.
I think he's solid. I don't know if he's the point guard of the future, but he's definitely a guy who could be in this rotation. But overall for my Spurs, clearly a rebuilding year. Praying for Victor Wembanyama. We'll see what happens there. I mean, it's really just the Keldon Johnson show right now. Shout out to Keldon, averaging 21 a game. He's not doing it very efficiently, but I mean,
I think he could be like. I feel like there's one of those reasons that like everyone should just vote for him to be an all-star.
Oh, absolutely. Why not? I mean, but yeah, it's not going to be a good season. Truthfully, it's been rough watching these past couple games. It's tough to watch San Antonio Spurs basketball right now, but hopefully one day it pays off.
Yeah, apologies for that target. I just feel like that would have been a funny team to like trade a piece. But we'll head into our final question of the night. We sent out, I think, the biggest meme poll we will ever do, and it was about the Pro Bowl. Oh my God, the Pro Bowl itself. I want to bring this up real quick. I think the Pro Bowl is just like a waste of just like trying to promote like certain players. Like it's like I think it should be the all-pro teams. Weird view, because I think like the all-pro teams, like that's like more known now. I think like because I don't think there's a lot of all-pros who are in, not because they're on the Super Bowl, but are not in because of like their lack of like a lack of fans themselves. But the question we have is, are you going to actually watch the Pro Bowl? I think that
I don't know.
I love that question. Mine's absolutely not. Not because I don't have a TV in my dorm. I don't have one for reference, but I just don't see the need and the purpose of wanting to watch. Now the skills competition maybe, but I don't see a purpose of watching a flag football game on national
And the
television.
funny part about that is it's a smaller field.
I know. So like it's basically a true meme game with a bunch of actual good football players. I think Justin Jefferson's gonna moss someone. Bold prediction right now. If Eli Apple was in it, that would have been the perfect person to moss.
I believe also Tyler Huntley might start for the AFC if I'm correct on that.
That's
Yes.
Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl throwing 2 touchdowns. What is this? He threw less touchdowns than Zach Wilson. How? And he started for the Ravens. Now, granted, the Ravens have like a couple okay receivers with Duvernay and Bateman. 2? I don't know. This is why I think the Pro Bowl is ridiculous. Because I don't see the view of having Tyler Huntley in the Pro Bowl. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the question first?
I mean, I didn't answer the question because I just don't even know. The Pro Bowl has not even crossed my mind. Like
I haven't watched the Pro Bowl since like
It's
2017.
just-
When was
it
the last time a
sucks.
Jet was good in the Pro Bowl? I don't think Jamal Adams. That was 2018.
it's just it unfortunately like it sucks because
It's
it's
fallen
like,
off a cliff.
I mean, it's the week before the Super Bowl. No one cares about, like, everyone's focusing on the Super Bowl. It's hard for football to make a good All-Star game.
No, so here's
because-
my thing with that. The All-Star game, when you used to watch the Pro Bowl, people were trying to like hit the crap out of each other.
Right.
Troy Polamalu, you saw like who was it? Muhammad Wilkerson, when the one time he was there, he like absolutely like ran over a quarterback and got a 15-yard penalty and a fine. I remember that because it got fined. He got fined the next day, and there was like a whole controversy with that. But at the same time, like I think the Pro Bowl is kind of useless at this point.
It's like, because all right, basketball's got a great All-Star game. All right, it's a lot of fun. I mean, because
Definitely the best.
No,
No.
yeah,
I mean,
because
hockey's is interesting.
baseball is great because that's the thing is football is hard because it's such a
It's a high contact sport, yeah.
sport, and you're trying, right? You gotta put a lot of effort and power into trying to stop the quarterback if you're playing defense or whatever, right? It's hard to play the sport and not like try to have fun, like messing around. Baseball, it's kind of
I
easy.
mean, you see the players mic'd up. That's hilarious.
that's
Like,
cool.
some of the
That's
guys,
cool.
some of the stuff that those guys say is hilarious.
Basketball, I
Cody
mean,
Bellinger.
it puts up like the best players and obiously
And zero
you
defense.
see-
It
yeah,
looks like
exactly,
it
and it's fun.
It looks like an Iona intramurals
The new
game.
rules has gotten better. With
Yes, no, the new
Right.
rules. I mean, I think it was kind of hilarious. Like the point totals were like 190 points. But Colin, did you have any other final remarks before we close this show today?
Yeah, really just not. I'm just not going to be watching it probably. I mean, the skills competitions are cool ideas, but what I want to see actually is I want to see a throwing contest where we maybe get Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, see who can throw a ball the farthest. I think we should see that, but
Yeah.
ultimately probably not going to happen. So
target practice.
we'll see. I mean, the crazy part is too, there's still probably going to be about 20 million people who watch this flag football game. So it's going to be crazy to see that. But yeah, I think we have to wrap up now.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are out of time for today. Quick shout out to my cousin whose birthday was yesterday. He told me to like give him a shout out. So shout out to PJ, my cousin. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. For Colin, Chris, and myself, thank you for tuning in to episode 13. Make sure to follow us on Instagram. The handle is down in the description. But for us, this is the end of episode 13. We'll see you guys next week. Make sure to tune in 5 to 6 every Thursday. We'll see you guys next time.